Shields up, Ironbreakers. We're kind of here coming at you with another video, and today we're going to be talking about Ghost of Tsushima. Now, as a quick reminder, this title was sent to me by PlayStation Portugal, so I could give it a look and tell you guys my opinions on it. Now, I did a review for this game pretty much on the embargo day, and during that review, I did mention there were a couple more topics that I wanted to talk about, a couple of things that I would like to have seen in the game, but I didn't really want to talk about them during the review because I felt they were going to spoil some aspects of the story and make the experience less enjoyable for some of you. So in this particular video, I'm just going to warn you guys ahead of time. Look, we're going to go into spoilers. I'm going to be talking about some portions of the story. I'm going to be talking about the way the story is structured, and that is going to be something that I consider to be spoilerish. So if you are planning on eventually playing the game, if you are planning on watching somebody else play the game, and you're still maybe watching a playthrough, like we have a full playthrough of Ghost of Tsushima here on the channel. I did the whole thing live, and it includes all of the main character side quests and all of that stuff. So if you still want to watch that, or maybe you're still watching it, then you might want to come back to this video after you experience the story, either for yourself or through a playthrough or something like that. So just letting guys know. Anyway, spoilers ahead of this, and 3, 2, 1, let's go. So Ghost of Tsushima is a game where essentially you play the role of a samurai who is beaten by the Mongols very early on in the game. The game takes place during the Mongol invasions, which you guys are most likely aware of by now. I mean, I've been playing the game nonstop. Essentially after that initial defeat, your character kind of starts going down a dark path. Now, the first time that I played through the game, I was like, okay, so this is going to be kind of like a choice type of deal, right? I'm going to have to choose. Do I want to take the path of the dishonorable ghost, or do I want to be an honorable samurai? And kind of like trying to keep with that, I was like, okay, I'm going to play as a samurai. So my very first playthrough, not the one that you're watching on YouTube, the one that I did like before the game came out, I was just strictly playing as a samurai. Like every single situation I would go into, I would go out of my way to make sure that the enemies were aware of my presence, and then I would kill all of them. But I would make sure that they were aware. Like every now and then I did the occasional backstab because, like, you know, the button for attacking an enemy is the same button for assassinating an enemy. And sometimes in the middle of the confusion of a fight, I might run into an enemy that hadn't seen me yet, and I just like press the button and just like stab him right through the face. And I was like, oh no, I didn't mean to, I'm so sorry. It was almost like, I'm so sorry I killed you like that. I totally didn't mean to do that. But, you know, it did happen a couple of times. But overall, like 99% of the kills that I did up until a certain point of the story in the main game were very much deliberate samurai kills. Like I would go out of my way to make sure that enemies would see me before I would kill them. I would do standoffs every single opportunity that I had. I just like went all the way full samurai with it, right? And one of the things that kind of reinforced my decision was that early on, if you know, when you start killing enemies, if you start doing it in a dishonorable way, you get a flashback to Lord Shimura, who is one of the main characters. He's your uncle. He's like a father figure to your character. And he's telling you, like, we have to look our enemies in the eyes. We have to be honorable. We have to conduct ourselves in an honorable way because we are samurai. We are, you know, we're not rogues in the night or something like that, right? And I know that there's a lot of people that feel like this is an overly romanticized notion of samurai, and regarding how historically accurate it is or it isn't, it's not really the case. In the context of the game, the samurai are extremely honorable warriors. I'm not going to say that they were or were not. I'm not, you know, really aware of how historically accurate the notion of samurai is. But ultimately, it's like in this game, a samurai is an honorable warrior, and, you know, they don't go around backstabbing people or underhanded tactics or anything like that, right? So I did that whole playthrough like that to try and see if there was like a different outcome to the story depending on what you did. And that was one of the things that's kind of like where we start my wish list for Ghost of Tsushima. Was I really wished that we had seen like some kind of an element of choice there that would have actually had impact in the story. I've been thinking about this a lot over the last couple of days. When I initially played through the game, I even sent out a question. I tried to get PlayStation to like send a message to the team asking them, you know, is this game linear? Is it not linear? Because of that first flashback that I saw, right? They ended up never really answering back. I'm assuming they're like, dude, you have the game, just play through it. And I'm like, I don't feel like playing it twice for the review, right? So I played it for the review, and then I did a review, and then I played it again on the channel because I wanted to, you know, save some hype for the second playthrough to play more as a ghost and use all of the other skill sets that you had, right? And now that I've played through it twice, I can tell you that pretty much nothing changed. In terms of narrative, pretty much nothing at all changed. Like, it was all the same cutscenes. They still said, oh, your nephew's like been backstabbing people. They said the same thing when I was playing as a samurai, because on certain missions, you're just forced to backstab people. Like, there's even cutscenes that they, you know, it actually goes over to an in-game cutscene that shows you your very first kill. And then there's other quests where it's like, there's a specific quest in the game where you're supposed to go under the cover of night into this camp and actually chop off the heads of 3 slavers, right? You're supposed to actually cut their heads off where they sleep. That's what they're like, you gotta go in, nobody can detect you, can't kill any of the guards, and you have to go in and assassinate them and take their heads. So it's like, that's a very dishonorable thing to do, right? And I was like, wow, that there's no way to tackle this as a samurai, right? That's one of the things that I was really, really hoping that would have been a thing in Ghost of Tsushima. I was even thinking about it now that I've experienced the whole story twice. The game does have like 2 endings, so to speak, even though the variation there is very minimal. Anyone who's watched my stream will know that by the time you get to the end, you get confronted by Lord Shimura, who is your father figure, because, you know, you've become the dishonorable ghost because there's no choice there. Essentially, your character becomes a dishonorable ghost as part of the story. You can't just choose to stay honorable. There's simply a quest where your character goes too far and poisons like half of the Mongol army, right? Which is one of the most dishonorable things, completely unacceptable. And, you know, at the end, you're confronted by your uncle, your father figure, who's like, the shogunate has told me to collect your head. In order for me to retain my honor, I have to take your head because he's the guy who trained you and all of that. And basically the choice that you get at the end of the game is you can let your uncle live or you can kill your uncle, you know? And it's a very heavy moment. Like, it's really well told. I'm not complaining about the story, because you guys need to understand, I greatly enjoyed the story of the game, even if it is at the end of the day a linear story. Even if there isn't really like a variation in terms of, doesn't matter if you play as a ghost or if you play as a samurai, like the story is the story is the story, right? At the end of the day, I still greatly enjoyed the story. I greatly enjoy the characters that you interact with, the path, the character arc that each of them takes. I've seen some articles that say that they don't like the story, and it's like I always say, story is not a universal thing. Not everybody is going to like the same stories. This particular story resonated really, really well with me. And from the people that were watching the stream, most people were saying like, oh yeah, the story was great. Like, they really enjoyed the story of the game. So I'm definitely not the only one that enjoyed this story. So at least, you know, but, you know, at the end of the day, the thing that I would have liked to have seen is alternating paths. Actually have the player choose, like, no, I went the path of the ghost and here's what happened. I went the path of the samurai and here's what happened. Now I realized that would be more work, but I'll be honest, I could do without maybe some of the world side quests that you had. Like, hey, there's this fisherman, he needs help, his daughter was kidnapped or something like that. Or there's this girl who saw some kind of like weird demon in the water, which there's a quest that's kind of like that. But at the end of the day, it turns out it was just bandits, right? And most of the quests are very much grounded. Like, you know, someone might say, oh, I saw this supernatural thing, but at the end of the day, it's just like, it's either a samurai or a bandit or a Mongol camp or something like that. The quests are very much grounded. There's no real supernatural stuff there. There's like one quest that you can say, oh, this felt a little bit supernatural, the one where you get the long bow and stuff. But that's mostly just like drugs and hallucinogens and whatever. So I don't really consider that to be that supernatural. But ultimately, you know, the game is very much grounded. And I would have liked to see a story. Like, you can take some of those quests away from the world and instead focus on making like 2 different paths for the players to follow. And I think that would have been a much more interesting thing, because I would have been very curious to see what it was going to be if I had taken a different route, right? I even had like this idea of how the story could change. So say, for instance, you would play the whole game as a samurai. Now, one of the things that happens throughout the story is that as your uncle is attacking his castle, which is Castle Shimura, which had been taken by the Mongols, as he is attacking the castle, like you see just waves of samurai going in, just like killing everybody, and we're advancing through the castle, defeating the Mongols, and everything's going according to plan. Eventually, we're charging through this bridge, and the Mongols basically set up a trap, and they just send out like a cart full of explosives into the bridge, and boom, like the hundreds of, I'm not sure if it was, probably dozens of samurai died right there. And, you know, that kind of shows you that, you know, the honorable path is a path that leads to heavy losses in Ghost of Tsushima, because, you know, at the end of the day, they're just like sending these warriors head on. Like the very first cutscene showcases a bunch of samurai just like jumping into the fray. It's like 80 samurai versus thousands of Mongols, and they get wiped out. They get decimated. This actually happened like historically. That they threw down like 80. They threw 80 samurai or something against 1,000 plus. Not even. It was like more than 10,000 Mongols or something. They threw 80 samurai at them. Like, what do you think happened? But, you know, essentially the whole theme there is that as you take the path of samurai, this is a path that would lead to heavy losses. That's something that is expressed throughout the whole story. So I was thinking, if you play as an honorable samurai, like, let's say you do a couple of shady things early on in the game because the game kind of forces you to, that's fine. But then eventually, let's say you actually are given the chance to redeem yourself in the eyes of your uncle, right? Let's say you actually, no, I'm going to become this honorable samurai, and I'm going to stick with the samurai traditions, and, you know, you start becoming more honorable. Maybe you could even unlock like a different skill tree if you went down this path, and you would unlock the skill tree of the samurai. And maybe if you go down that path, the story could actually end in defeat. Like, you imagine you would actually lose the battle against the Mongols. Let's say maybe you would even end up killing Khatun Khan, right? You would even end up killing him, but at the end of the day, the Mongols would still win because they're the Mongol horde. There's just too many of them for you to defeat, and you're taking this path of honor, and there's quite simply not enough samurai to stop the tide of Mongols that are going through Tsushima Island. So let's say that you get to the ending, you defeat Khatun Khan, and you realize this was all for nothing. You lose your uncle maybe in the battle, maybe you even lose some of your allies, but it's like, I did the honorable thing. I played the path of the samurai, and I lost, right? Or you would then, instead of that, you would choose to go the ghost route, right? And you would get like a different skill tree with different abilities and something like that, right? And then you would play through the game, and you would be this dishonorable character, and it would kind of be the story that we ended up getting, right? That would be just the path of the ghost. The story as it is would be perfect for that. It's like, oh, you became this dishonorable samurai, you poisoned a bunch of Mongols, and nobody really trusts you. The shogunate disowns you. They take away your lands. They take away your title. They finish Clan Sakai. Like, you lose everything, but you win the fight. And I think that would have been a really interesting path for them to take, right? Because you would have two different playstyles. And you know, the cutoff point could be like 60% into the game, 70% into the game. So up until that point, you can play it any way that you want to kind of like let players formulate the style that they like to play the most. And then just like have like a pivotal moment where you make the choice. Like that moment in Castle Shimura, where basically you go and you poison the Mongol horde. At that moment, imagine you would have the choice to tell Yuna, no, we will do this the way that my uncle says. We will go forward, and we will tackle them head on, and you would suffer major losses, and eventually your army would be too weak. You would end up in a fight with Khatun Khan somehow. You would be able to kill him still to kind of get the players their closure on that story, right? Because Khatun Khan is like the big villain, the big baddie. So it'd still be cool for the players to be able to get some closure on that. But in the end, the honorable path would eventually lead to the defeat of Tsushima. Maybe we could even have the protagonist dying at the end in the final confrontation with Khotun Khan, like you'd kill Khotun Khan, but then you would become like overwhelmed by the remainder of his forces, and you would die an honorable samurai, and maybe even future generations of samurai would remember Jin Sakai as one of the great heroes of Tsushima, and that could be kind of like romanticized and incorporated in the end. But I just think that that would have been so much more epic to actually get that choice, and maybe you could even have the people react differently to Jin depending on the path that he takes. Like if he takes the ghost, maybe people, you know, would be a little bit more hesitant to talk with him, or if he takes the path of the honorable samurai, kind of like the same stuff that Sucker Punches did for Infamous. I guess that's another one of the reasons why I kind of expected that from this game, because Sucker Punch has done something like this for the Infamous titles. Like people would be scared of you if you would use your powers in a very destructive way, and people would be like cheering for you if you were, you know, a little bit kinder and you were doing more non-lethal takedowns and stuff like that. And I don't know, I just think that that would have been a very interesting way of telling the story. But again, like I said, I still greatly enjoy the story. I think the game is fantastic. It's just one of those things, like I really wanted this other thing as well, and I just had to do this video to get it out of my mind. But I'm curious to know what you guys think about it. Let me know in the comment section down below. If you guys enjoyed this video, hit the like button. If you did not enjoy this video, hit the dislike button, because feedback is important. Feedback, which you can also leave in the comment section, like I said. Subscribe if you usually enjoy my content. Hit the bell notification icon, all of that jazz. I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay strong, stay safe, peace out.